when I come to Chi Alpha or they're just not growing, maybe the Lord's pruning you.
Yeah.
But the Father's trustworthy. Ultimately, it's for our own good.
Yeah.
But I've been reading this commentary on John by F.B. Mayer. He's one of our ODG friends. Talk about him, old dead guys. But he had another cool thought about branches and vines. Mainly the fact that we are not the only branch on the vine.
Yeah.
That's why we have Chi Alpha like this. We're not doing it alone. But he can say it better. So this is what F.B. Mayer says about it. He says, no twig is independent of another twig. However different the functions, root and branches, leaves and clusters all together make one composite but organic whole. So it is with Christ. All who are one with him are one with each other.
Dang.
That's crazy. We aren't made to do this alone.
Yeah.
Like the nature of a vine is that it keeps producing branches. So Jesus didn't say, you are my branch. He was talking to branches.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that since we're made for it, if we start acting like we're alone in this, things actually go pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes me think of the story my grandma told me one time. Just for some context, my grandma is affectionately known as Meemaw.
So sweet.
Yeah, she's the sweetest lady you'll ever meet. She, she, like at her church or any kind of like senior thing that they do, she's the one that's bringing all the potluck meals. She's always making me like cakes and candy. And
they're great.
Yes, she also, for Christmas, she hand sews ornaments for everyone in the family. She's just, she's super sweet. Yeah. But anyway, she was born in 1940. I don't know if she would like for me to tell you that, but there you go.
Sorry, Mimo.
Sorry. But yeah, back then, they didn't have the same regulations and stuff that they have for cars today. So kids didn't have to be in car seats. Many cars didn't even have seatbelts. Kind of crazy. But she told me this story when she was 4 years old. She was driving home with her mom and dad. And she's looking out the window, and they live on a farm, so she's seeing all of like the open road by her, and she thinks, I wonder what it would be like to jump out of this car right now. My sweet Mimo thought that. And so she's looking out the window, and they're almost home, and there's a big curve coming up. And she thinks to herself, as a 4-year-old, I think that if I'm going to jump out of this car, I need to wait till the curve because we'll slow down when we go on the curve. So she's thinking all these thoughts to herself. Her mom and dad are in the front seat. They go on the curve, and my Meemaw jumps out of this car, this moving car, at the age of 4.
Sweet Meemaw.
Sweet Meemaw. So her knees get scuffed up. Thankfully, she didn't like break anything. I think they were going slow enough. But I mean, she got pretty roughed up. Her parents probably almost had a heart attack. I probably would have a heart attack if a kid jumped out of my car. But all that to say that we can't let each other think alone. If my grandma had said, hey, Mom, I think I want to know what it's like to jump out of a car, she would have been shut down immediately. They maybe even would have explained, like, you'll get really hurt. And she might have thought, okay, no, I don't want to do that. So yeah, if she had said those thoughts out loud, her parents would have shown her the error of her thinking. And I know this is about a 4-year-old.
Yeah, it's kind of hits close to home. I did something like this when I was 18. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Friends don't let friends think alone.
Yeah. So when a 4-year-old or an 18-year-old jumps out of a car, your first thought as someone listening to this story or as the parents is to say, what were you thinking? And that's just it, is like when we're thinking weird, stupid things, it's because we're keeping our thoughts to ourselves. And if we had told other people what we were thinking, they would understand, and we would probably be better for it. So going back to John 15 that we just read, it says that if we abide in Jesus, he will abide in us. So if Jesus abides in us, that means that each of you guys, has a unique piece of his character within us. yeah. So it's worth our time to be in fellowship with godly community, to be in fellowship with each other in this room. Because being intentional in friendships is another way for us to know Jesus deeper. It's another way for us to abide in Jesus. Ecclesiastes 4:9 says, 2 people are better than one, and they can help each other succeed. So if each of us understands a piece of God's character, we may understand something that not necessarily other people in the room understand. I may understand something that Josh doesn't understand.
It's usually the case.
Usually the case. But that's why we need each other. That's why we need to hear each other's thoughts about Jesus. And that's why we need to ask each other and also tell each other our thoughts about Jesus. Because friends don't let friends think alone. So an example of this, I'm just going to share. 5 years ago when we came here, it was the same year that people came here to start a Chi Alpha, and I was in Paige Hester's small group. I love Paige Hester. She's awesome. If you don't know her, you need to get to know her. But the way that she thinks about Jesus has changed the way that I think about Jesus. So she has the most incredible thought life. She is constantly talking about Jesus. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with her where she doesn't bring up something that she's learning. She's also constantly sharing like podcasts and pictures of quotes that she's reading, and she's recommending good books. And that's all cool. But the best thing about Paige when she thinks about Jesus is her wonder. She just has an awe about Jesus. And when you talk to her, you can see it. Just her tone and her face, everything that she says, you can tell that she is really inspired by the things that she's learning about Jesus. And because of that, I have thought about Jesus in the same way. I'm really not one to think in the mystical way. I'm more logical, but Paige has helped me think in a more wondrous way and think more about the awe of God. Which is really cool. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't care to hear her thoughts or if she didn't care to share them. So when people ask us questions about what we're reading or what they're learning or what we're learning, when Paige asked me those questions when I was in her small group, she wasn't trying to catch me and be like, oh, you didn't read. Oh, I got you. She's genuinely, when she asks those questions and when other people ask those questions, they're genuinely trying to learn more about Jesus. Because we can do it that way. We can learn more about Jesus that way. So I'm super grateful that I got to be in Paige's small group and that I still get to live life with her. I get to hang out with her all the time. But I think to myself, what if Paige weren't born in this generation? What if she was born 100 or 200 or 300 years ago? That would really be sad because I love Paige and I love learning from her. But there's a ton of old, dead people who walked with Jesus and really knew him well. And it's kind of sad that we don't get to learn from them. Like, there's so many people that have had really cool thoughts and the Lord has really spoken to that we don't know today. But some of those people actually wrote down their thoughts. They wrote books, they wrote articles, some of their sermons were written down. And so we can still read them today, and we can learn from those people 2, 3, maybe more.
1,000 years ago.
We can learn from people who learned from Jesus generations ago. So have you guys heard us talk about ODGs? Yeah. So in case you don't know, ODG stands for Old Dead Guys and Girls. And so we just shorten it to sound cooler. You may have been recommended a book by some of the ODGs that we love. Maybe you've heard of C.S. Lewis or
G. Campbell Morgan,
Corrie ten Boom, A.W. Tozer.
Yeah.
Those are just a few. There's tons, and you saw a ton out there when you came in. But my favorite is Andrew Murray. I don't know who your favorite is, actually.
G. Campbell Morgan.
G. Campbell, yeah. We read books from old dead people all the time here, and we talk about them all the time, and we get excited when we find books from old dead people. So what's so special about old dead people? Like, why read them instead of people who live today and know Jesus? Why read them then instead of just talking with our friends? The reason that it's exciting to read from old dead guys and girls is because we know that they lived their whole life well. We know that in their life, they met with Jesus, and they abided with him, and they also poured into the people around them, and they finished well. There's been studies done on leaders in the Bible, so like literally the Bible, like biblical leaders. Only 1 in 3 of them finished well. Only 1 in 3 of them finished their lives knowing Jesus, which is nuts. So if I know of someone from another generation who lived their whole life abiding in Jesus and they spent it well, I want to learn from them because I want to be one of those 1 in 3 people who love Jesus and spent their life with them. So, yeah. Just like how we can learn from Jesus from each other, we can learn more about Jesus from people who spent their lives serving him. So yeah, I know that ODGs, especially because some of them are written hundreds of years ago, are kind of hard to read sometimes, and maybe we don't even like reading current people, you know? Maybe we feel like we're not that good at reading in general, so why do we want to read these like old people? Or maybe we just think it's boring. I don't know. But yeah, whatever our thoughts are about it, we can trust that Jesus can and will use the time that we spend like intentionally trying to read these things. Some of the other reasons that we read ODGs specifically and why it's exciting to read them is that maybe we do have to look up words a little more when we read them. Maybe there are some things that we don't understand. But actually, I found that the more that we look things up, the more that we really dive into these books, the more that it sticks in my memory, the more that I remember the content that I'm reading. And just like I said earlier, these people are from a different generation than us. So if we're only reading from people from our generation and only talking with people from our generation, then we're only getting this perspective, this current day's perspective. And I have to tell you guys that generations from the past have totally different perspectives from us, and the things that they learned from the Lord and the truths and the principles and convictions that are in these books have been tested, whereas maybe some of the things we're learning haven't been tested, and maybe we'll learn in the future that something we thought was right actually wasn't. So that's some of the reasons why we love ODGs and why they're so important for us to read, because they have so much truth and so much, we call them gold nuggets, so many gold nuggets that maybe stuff that we're reading today doesn't have. Again, if you don't feel like you're good at reading, I encourage you to try. Reading is like a muscle. So just like when you're working out, maybe it's really uncomfortable at first, maybe you're sore, maybe you feel like you're not getting anywhere. That's how I feel a lot of the time. But really, if you're intentional and consistent in working out, someday you'll be able to look at yourself and say, I am stronger, I am healthier. And it's the same way with reading. You'll be able to look at how you used to read and how you read now and say, okay, this actually is making me a healthier and a stronger follower of Jesus. Because that's what it's about. I've just talked about reading for a while because it's important, but reading isn't just about reading. That's not the end goal. It's about the relationship with Jesus. It's about abiding with Jesus. Abiding is the end goal. So just kind of like how a workout or a protein shake is a means to an end. It's not the goal. The goal is to spend time with Jesus.
Yeah, I kind of fall into the trap of, because I love books, there's something about really pretty books that I'm all about.
Yeah.
Looking on a shelf.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to get sucked into just loving the books, and it's cool you get a book that's from 1850.
Right.
And you're like, this is legit.
Yes.
Kevin's with me. And I think it's fine to love those things, but when we start to love those more than we love Jesus, then we're actually hurting ourselves. Because the whole point is to know him.
Right.
We say we don't read to remember, we read to realize.
Yes.
And the point is to fall in love with Jesus. Because Jesus is the most beautiful, most interesting, most unique, most valuable person in the universe.
Absolutely.
And if we can, that is the most valuable use of our time. If you could spend half an hour like working on something, like working out, or half an hour spending time with Jesus, Jesus is always the better choice.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's something really special about being surrounded by a community like this. If you've been in Chi Alpha more than a year, you'll understand when I say this. Some of the hardest parts for myself being in Chi Alpha have been the summers, when either I leave Lubbock or all of my friends leave Lubbock and I stay.
Yeah, that was my case. All my friends left me in the summers.
And so you're not surrounded by people who
Right.
are reading the Bible, who are reading Old Dead Guys and talking about Jesus. And so in summers, I would get kind of lonely because of that. But the cool thing that I learned one summer was that God understands. Really the point of Jesus coming from heaven to earth as a man is so that no one could accuse God of not understanding ever again. That same night that Jesus was talking to his disciples about abiding in the vine was the night Jesus got arrested, and every one of them promised him that they would never leave him, that they would rather die than leave him. And every one of them left him. So he was entirely alone, except he had God. He had the Father. And then shortly after that, we have in Scripture the one moment that we know Jesus was completely and utterly alone. So in Matthew 27, I'll just read it. Jesus is hanging on the cross. And it says, about 3 p.m, Jesus cried out with a loud voice. He said, my God, why have you abandoned me? Jesus was abandoned so that we could abide in God. What do we deserve? We actually don't deserve to be close to God at all. We are his enemies. If you know yourself and you're honest with yourself, you know that you, left to your own, you are an enemy of God. We deserve to be cut off. Like John 15 said, we're useless branches that deserve to be thrown into the fire. But God's good. Like I said, God's not just trying to catch us up. Jesus chose to be abandoned so that we could abide in God. And the greatest thing is that Jesus didn't stay dead. He actually came back to life so that we could leave our old life of being enemies with God and that we could go forward in new life abiding in him. So maybe you're here tonight, it's your first night here, or you wouldn't consider yourself a Christian. This is still for you. Jesus didn't just die for people who were already right with him. He died for his enemies, which means he died for you so that you could abide in him. So if you haven't experienced that and you don't abide in Christ, maybe you'd call yourself a Christian, but you know that you're not intimate friends with Jesus. And then we're about to worship. We're going to spend some time with music. Come up to the front, spend some time praying, seek God, and make your decision to abide in Christ. Worship team.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire standing next to me. There was another in the waters holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burden where another died for me. There is another in the fire. Dead, left for dead beneath the waters. And I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall in this space between what remains of me and this endless reckoning. Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding what power set me free, there is a grave that holds nobody, and now the power lives in me. There is another in the fire, and oh, there is another in the fire, and oh, there is another in the fire, oh, there is another in the fire, and I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between wears thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in, and nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning. I know I will never be alone. I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I count the joy from every battle, because I know that's where you'll be. I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between wears thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I count the joy from every battle, because I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy from every battle, because I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy from every battle, because I know that's where you'll be.
The first few times I heard that song, and I heard, I'll count the joy from every battle, I was like, what? Joy? That's crazy. Battles are hard. But he wins every battle. And so if we trust him, then there is joy, because we know he's triumphant, right? The Bible talks a lot about wine. And so the song we're about to sing, it's not new, is called New Wine. And one of the things about this song is the writer is asking God to make new wine out of them. And if you aren't familiar with the process of making wine, or the reason why it's used so often in Scripture, is because it takes time and process, fermentation, crushing, and some wines were better than others. If you were like a super popular, well-off person, you gave your best wine at a wedding, and the new wine was the strongest. If it was something that had been sitting around for a while, it wasn't as good. And so in this song, there's a petition to the Lord to make new wine out of ourself. But what that really is saying is, I will submit to and I will surrender to whatever circumstance you allow in my life, even if it feels like I'm being crushed. Because I know that through it, I will be stronger, not for myself, but for you. And if that's really in our heart of hearts to glorify Jesus with our lives, then suffering is something that will actually help us to trust his heart for us. And how wonderful is it that Jesus suffered more than any of us could ever imagine, not just physically, but the loneliest person in the world probably. Like his best friends all deserted him in his last hour. And he left God's presence, his Father's presence, so that we could be with him because he really deserves it. So he doesn't just deserve our eternities, he actually deserves our surrender in the day-to-day. And so if you haven't heard this song before, just listen and see what you think it means to you. And while you sing, ask the Lord, like, what does the crushing and the pressing mean for me? And am I really willing to allow you to do it? Because he's a gentleman. He won't. Or if something does happen that is crushing, it's a lot easier when you just trust the Lord. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. We'll sing that again. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. So I yield to you into your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender. You are breaking new ground. You are breaking new ground. So make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want but all you have given me, Jesus, when you are out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, so worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, oh, we live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy and holy. There is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, oh, we live for you, Jesus. Jesus, the only one, only other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. So worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those who are holy and holy. There is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will
and to you are all things, and you deserve the glory. You're worthy, and you are worthy of it all. And you are worthy of it all. And for from you are all things, and to you are all things, and you deserve the glory. Sing all the saints. And
All the saints and angels bow before your throne. All the elders cast their crowns before the Lamb of God and sing.
let's sing it again, all the saints.
And all the saints and angels, they bow before your throne. And all the elders cast their crowns before the Lamb of God and sing, but you are worthy of it all. And you are worthy of it all. Yes, you are. For from you are all things, and to you are all things, and you deserve the glory. And you are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory.
Sing day and night. Sing day and night, night and day, let incense arise. And day and night, night and day, let incense arise. And day and night, night and day, let incense arise. And day and night, night and day, let incense arise. And day and night, night and day, let incense arise. And day and night, night and day, let incense arise. And day and night, night and day, let incense arise. And day and night, night and day, let incense, 'cause you are worthy of it all. Yes, you are. You are worthy of it all. There's never been anyone like you. For from you are all things, and to you are all things, and you deserve the glory. You're worthy. You are worthy of it all. And you are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things, and you deserve the glory.
What's up? We are going to go ahead and explain real fast what the table out in the foyer is for. Yeah, so first I'm going to tell you about my favorite ODG that I mentioned, G. Campbell Morgan. I don't know. So G. Campbell Morgan was a really famous preacher, but he never actually went to Bible school. He never went to a seminary like a lot of people do. But the books he wrote are literally used in seminaries. They're that good. And he was never educated in ministry, but he preached over 23,000 sermons. And he was on the board of 3 different colleges, and he was the president of a college. But he didn't have that formal education. We're like, why? How could someone be like that? And the secret was in how he would read the Bible. Someone asked him, how do you study the Bible? Because he was known for it. And he was like, if I told you, you wouldn't do it. And the guy was like, no, I want to know. And he said, okay, I read a book of the Bible 40 to 50 times before I even study it. And then he would study it. And then he would preach on it. He was known for every day he would go into his office at 6 a.m. and he wouldn't leave until noon. And he was mainly spending time with Jesus, reading his Bible. And so a guy who wasn't educated in the Bible became one of the world's best preachers and authors on the Bible just because he spent time with Jesus. And so some of us heard about this a couple years ago, and we started doing a thing called Morgan Mornings, where early in the morning, if you're doing it right, you meet up with your friends, your small group, and you have coffee, you read the Bible, and then you talk about it. I've never done it for 6 hours, but if you can, more power to you. So Aaron, would you actually explain the table that's out there?
Yeah, so that table out there is full of mugs and full of books from ODGs, mostly ODGs. So yeah, this side of the mug is just our logo, but this side says, friends don't let friends think alone. And that's what we were talking about tonight, and that is what we want you guys to remember. So we're selling them for $22.37, which is kind of a weird price. But it's after the verse in Matthew 22:37, which says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. So yeah, our hope is that you guys would buy this package that we have, this mug and these books, in the hopes that you would read them with the intention of loving the Lord with your heart, soul, and mind, and that you would have coffee with each other while you do it, so that you can learn more about the Lord through each other. So, yeah.
So 2 books and a mug. That is a great price for
It's
that.
a steal for
And a
this
really
gold.
legit mug.
Yeah.
And don't just buy it. Talk to your small group leader. Find a time, do a Morgan morning. And if you can, do it every week for the rest of the semester. Abide in Jesus. Let's do this. It's right through those doors.
Yeah, wait, I'm up like a kite, might fly off the shadow. Hit me on my worst day, I won't get mad. Yeah, I'm up, I ain't mad right now. Yeah, I'm up, I ain't mad right now. Got joy in my heart, yeah, I move like a star. Yeah, move, fix your lip, don't you hate little shit. Yeah, I'm up, I ain't mad right now. Yeah, I'm up, I ain't mad right now.
Up like a kite, might fly away to Saturn. Hit me on my worst day, it won't even matter. I just hit J from Genesis for the ladder. Got a gate on my premises for the jackers. Easy, every day we ate Little Caesars. Overcame that just like Mandisa. Tie-dye colors all on my T-bus. Any tribe, you know just how we get. Hop on the track and flow. Now that I got that hoe, up and away I go.
I'm up like a kite, might fly off the shadow. Hit me on my worst day, I won't get mad. Yeah, I'm up, I ain't mad